What's up, everybody? I'm Finn McKenty. This is the Punk Rock MBA. So today I thought I'd do one of these like 5 bands that changed my life kind of things. Number 1, for sure, hands down, is the Vandals. So you guys may know this band, like OG, like 80s LA punk band. You might know them for the song they had on Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1, I think, called Eurobarge, where they're making fun of Europeans, which I love because, man, how could you not make fun of Europeans? Like, European personality disorder is so real. I talk about this with my friends in bands all the time. Like, you know, they'll come back from Germany and it's like, hello, you play very good set tonight. Not as good as last time, but tonight was okay. Also, you have gained weight, yeah? Anyway, that's another conversation. But the Vandals, fun fact, are actually the inspiration for this channel. The whole idea for this thing of basically like business school for our people, essentially, came from the Vandals, specifically from their bassist, Joe Escalante. In addition to playing bass in the Vandals, Joe has been an attorney for, I don't know, 20 years or something like that. He did like contracts at CBS television for a while. He also had a radio show called Barely Legal Radio, which is about, you know, entertainment law, about intellectual property law. I know that sounds kind of boring to you guys, but if you're a creator, that's shit you should know. So if you ever wondered like what your rights are as a creator, how do you protect those rights with copyright and trademark? What happens if somebody infringes on your rights? Like if you're a photographer and somebody uses one of your pictures without asking, that's the kind of shit he talked about on his radio show. I listened to that thing every single episode for years. So the Vandals are a huge inspiration to me because even though they have like never, ever been anything but just like a straight up pure punk band, they've always channeled that energy into doing something with their lives rather than like, you know, that self-destructive shit that so many of those other bands fell into. And number 2, Black Flag / SST Records. So I mentioned SST Records because they might have actually been a bigger inspiration to me than Black Flag itself. So SST Records, as you may know, is their label. Greg Ginn, the guitarist who started Black Flag, also started SST Records. Black Flag essentially made the blueprint for DIY as we know it today. So, you know, they're booking their own tours, they put out their own records through SST, and I would read these stories about them, like if you know the Henry Rollins book, Get in the Van. I remember getting that back in the day, and reading these stories about them sleeping under the desks. You know, they all like were essentially homeless. You know, they lived in the office at SST in LA, and they would sleep under the desks. They'd be living on $2 a day or whatever. They would spend all day walking around town, putting up flyers and shit like that to promote their next show. You know, maybe other people read that and were like, man, that sounds horrible. I read that and I was like, that sounds fucking awesome. Like, I never really wanted to be in a band. I wanted to start SST. That's what I was into. You know, I guess I had like the business bug at an early age. So, you know, I never cared about being in a band, but I was so inspired by hearing about what they did to like promote their business. That is the part that inspired me. I know maybe that's weird. Like maybe other people were like, I want to be in fucking Black Flag. I want to be Henry Rollins. I was like, I want to start SST. I want to own the business. To me, I always looked at like Black Flag more as a business than a band. That was the part that inspired me because let's be honest, most of their music is fucking terrible. You know, all the Henry Rollins stuff basically is pretty bad. It's still like the early, you know, the early stuff with like Dez and Chavo, all that stuff. But, you know, the Henry stuff, like, I don't know, how can you listen? Like, I used to think that stuff was good when I was a kid, but I listen to it now and I'm just like, ugh. Anyway, so that is number 2, Black Flag, and more specifically SST Records. Huge inspiration to me for just sort of showing me what the blueprint was for DIY. Number 3, Gorilla Biscuits. This band was very inspirational to me because they were a positive hardcore band, and other than 7 Seconds, I really couldn't find anything else like that. So just to like sort of set the stage, you may have heard like Harley Flanagan or whoever talk about this, but like hardcore back then was very dark. I mean, this was like, and maybe these stories are exaggerated, I don't know, but you know, you would read about the guys in Agnostic Front or whatever, like literally living in a burned out van in the park with like a fucking, you know, like burning garbage fire next to it and a pit bull guarding the door. You know, again, I don't know if it's exaggerated or not, but like that was the vibe, and that never really interested me. I was definitely not interested in all these bands that were like, you know, the like live fast, die young thing, like the Circle Jerks and stuff like that. These people that were like, just basically it was like a race to see who could like destroy themselves the fastest. That definitely never appealed to me because that was like my parents and their friends and stuff. I saw people destroy their lives on drugs and alcohol and living fast and stuff at a very, very early age. I remember one of my earliest memories is like my mom's best friend dying of alcohol poisoning. Like, so that was never at all appealing to me, not interesting in the slightest. And I was also not interested in, like, you know, the Dead Kennedys would be like the perfect example of this, is like so many of those bands are just like pointing the finger at other people. Like every Dead Kennedy song is Jello bitching about some different group of people, right? Like, you know, it's the cops or the government or the teachers or jocks or this or this or this. Like, it's always somebody else's fault, right? It's always, and the reason why I don't like that is, aside from it just being like fucking annoying, you're giving somebody else control of your life. When you point the finger at them and say, it's your fault that I'm not happy, well then you're saying you don't have control over your own happiness, you don't have control over your own life. And I've just never been into that. Like, I don't want to point the finger at other people because I want to have control over my life and over my happiness. And so that is why a lot of that other punk stuff just didn't really resonate with me. I mean, I liked it musically, I still do. And with metal, you know, obviously I was listening to like Sepultura and The Accused and, you know, stuff, Morbid Angel, stuff like that. I love that stuff musically, but there's nothing I relate to about a song about, you know, some ancient fucking Sumerian god or whatever, like zombies. Like the message there is no message, right? So when I found Gorilla Biscuits, I was like, fuck yes, this is what I'm looking for, because, you know, they had the energy and the aggression of hardcore, but they had a message that resonated with me. Like, they were kids from the suburbs like me, you know, no disrespect to anybody who did, but I didn't grow up in a burned out van in the park, like, so I just can't relate to that. And I was not interested in pointing the finger at other people. And so here Gorilla Biscuits comes along. This is a message that I can relate to. Like, you know, they have the song Start Today, which is about basically like overcoming procrastination and laziness. It's essentially a hardcore song about productivity. Like, I mean, it's perfect. Now, I'm probably weird. I don't know how many other 15-year-olds were like excited to hear a song about productivity, but I was. Number 4 is Periphery. So obviously this is a newer band. If you're a metal fan, you know Periphery. They are the fathers of the gent thing, which, you know, nobody likes that word, including them, but it is what it is. So these guys have changed my life in a very personal way, specifically that I have, you know, ended up being basically business partners with them on a bunch of different things. So I started working with them back in like 2015 or so. I used to work for a company called Creative Live that does like online education. I started the part of Creative Live that teaches people how to do music production. That's where I worked with Matt and Nolly on a class back in like 2015. Matt and Nolly from Periphery, you know, we liked working with each other, so that just sort of turned into more things and more things and more things. And now I'm partners with these guys on a few different things, one of which is Get Good Drums. It's a software company with Matt and Nolly and Misha from Periphery and Dez from Good Tiger. I worked with Horizon Devices for about a year, which is a guitar pedal company. Misha is one of the partners in that thing. And through Periphery, I also started working with their management company, where I ended up working with the Day to Remember and Issues and Self-Help Fest and some other bands like that. That's how Periphery changed my life, you know, whereas these other bands kind of, you know, inspired me or showed me that this stuff was possible. Periphery was my chance to actually put this stuff into action in a way that I hadn't before. So thank you guys very much for all the opportunities that you have given me. I'm stoked to work with you. Hopefully there's lots more to come in the future. So that was number 4, Periphery. Number 5, I'm going to keep this one short but sweet, is a band called Capitalist Casualties. So most of you guys have probably not heard of Capitalist Casualties. Not a very big band. They were a, you know, kind of DRI, sort of like fast hardcore punk band that was the very first band that I interviewed. So I remember, like, this is maybe 93, 94, something like that. I had their 7-inch. They were like my favorite, like, kind of underground band at the time. I started doing a fanzine then, and I was like, man, I should start interviewing bands. So I was like, fuck it, why not? I wrote a letter to the address on their record. You know, I wrote them a letter, said, hey, I'm doing, you know, I'm Finn, I'm 15, I'm doing the zine. Would you guys like to do an interview? So I got a letter from Mike, the guitarist of Capitalist Casualties, got a letter back from him a couple weeks later, and he said, yes, here's my phone number, give me a call whenever. I was like, oh my God, like, I got a letter from the guy in the band, and he gave me his phone number, and I'm gonna call him. And so I did the interview, and I remember my heart was pounding, but he was super nice. I'm sure I was very annoying and awkward and stupid, because how could you not be when you're 15 years old interviewing someone in your favorite band? But they said yes, and you know, that just really showed me that that's all you need to do. It just showed me that if you take the opportunity, if you take the initiative to put yourself out there and just ask for what you want, if you just reach out to people, then eventually they'll say yes. And what a hugely valuable lesson, because that's the way the world works. Like, you've got to put yourself out there, let people know you exist, and then number 2 is you got to ask for what you want. That's basically the formula for doing anything, whether you want to start a company, you want to like market yourself, whatever it is you want to do. Those are the 2 things you have to do. Put yourself out there, ask for what you want. And these guys, by saying yes to my letter that I sent them when I was 15 years old, they kind of showed me that that's how it's done. And I didn't connect the dots that clearly when I was a kid, but that's the lesson that it taught me. So that was an incredibly valuable valuable one. Unfortunately, I have to say, unfortunately, Sean, the singer for Capitalist Casualties, passed away recently, so RIP Sean. Thank you guys very much for teaching me that valuable lesson. You guys made a difference in my life, whether you know it or not. Anyway, that is my 5 bands that changed my life, that helped me kind of be inspired and motivated, that helped me actually, you know, in the case of Periphery, do some of this shit. So thank you guys very much for inspiring me, for giving me these opportunities. I'm going to wrap it up for now, but as always, if you liked this video, please do what you can to help spread the word. If you could like the video, leave a comment, share it, you know, whatever it is you can do. Please subscribe. That's the #1 thing I would love for you to do. Subscribe if you are not already. Hit that button. Yeah, so I will sign off for now. I'm Finn McKenty. This is the Punk Rock MBA. I will see you next time.